The heavy satin dress was pooled around my ankles on the ice-cold floor of the hotel suite. Mark was already asleep, a dead weight in the enormous, sterile white bed. He was breathing that deep, exhausted rhythm of a man who just had the best day of his life. I was sitting on the edge, the blue glow of my phone the only light in the room. My thumb hovered over her name. My maid of honor. My best friend. My everything. Mark was snoring softly, oblivious. He had no idea that the real vow of my wedding night hadn't been spoken at the altar. It had been a text message, and I hadn't decided if I was going to answer it. 6 months earlier, none of this was even a possibility. It was just us, Mark and me, the kind of couple that made other people feel a little sick, but in a good way. We fit. We made sense. He was steady and kind, the bedrock I never knew I needed. When he proposed on a random Tuesday in our kitchen, I cried so hard I couldn't even see the ring. It was an immediate yes. Of course it was. The first person I called, before even my mom, was Sarah. She screamed louder than I did. Finally, I've been picking out my maid of honor dress for years. We laughed. It was our joke. Sarah wasn't just my best friend. We were woven from the same thread. We'd known each other since we were kids who believed you could seal a promise with a pinky swear. She knew every secret, every scar, every stupid thing I'd ever done. We were a package deal. When I fell in love with Mark, he knew he wasn't just getting me, he was getting us. The three of us became a unit. We'd have dinner, watch movies, go on weekend trips. It was easy, comfortable. Mark loved her like a sister. He'd say, "You two have your own weird language." And he was right. Our future felt so bright and solid. A house, kids, growing old. Sarah would be there for all of it, the forever aunt, the other half of my heart. I had everything. A man I adored, and a friend who was my soulmate. I had no idea how dangerous it is to have everything you've ever wanted. The shift started subtly, so subtly I didn't even recognize it as a shift. I just thought it was wedding planning. Mark was working long hours, trying to get a promotion. He'd come home exhausted. "Whatever you and Sarah think is best," he'd say, waving a hand at the flower swatches and invitation samples covering our dining table. He trusted me. He trusted us. So it became me and Sarah. Late nights spent poring over spreadsheets. Long Saturdays in stuffy bridal shops. We'd share a bottle of wine and complain about my mother's seating chart demands. It felt normal. It felt like what best friends do. Then one night, we were sitting on my apartment floor surrounded by half-addressed envelopes. I was exhausted, crying a little over something stupid. Some tiny, perfect detail that felt monumental. She just reached out and put her hand on my knee, a simple gesture. But she didn't pull away. "It's going to be perfect," she said, her voice soft. "He's so lucky to have you." Her eyes were fixed on mine. The air in the room changed. The quiet hum of the refrigerator suddenly seemed deafening. Her thumb moved just a fraction of an inch against my skin. It wasn't a friendly pat. It was a question. I didn't answer it. I just pulled my knee back and stood up too quickly. I should probably make more coffee. But something was different after that. A line had been drawn, and we'd both tiptoed right up to the edge of it. I started to notice things. The way she'd look at me when she thought I wasn't watching. The texts she'd send late at night, long after Mark was asleep beside me. They weren't scandalous, just intimate. "Thinking of you," one said. "Hope you're sleeping well." I never told Mark about them. I don't know why. The lie started small. "Who was that?" Mark asked one morning, seeing me smile at my phone over breakfast. "Just my mom, bugging me about the caterer," I said. "It was Sarah. It was always Sarah. And once you tell one lie, the next one is easier." The texting became our secret language. We had entire conversations he knew nothing about. We'd be in the same room, all three of us, and my phone would buzz in my pocket. A private joke, a shared observation. It felt like a current running between us, invisible and dangerous. I felt sick with guilt. I loved Mark. I was going to be his wife. But the attention from Sarah, it was a different kind of warmth. He saw me as his future, a part of a beautiful plan. She saw me, the tired, scared, messy parts. The bachelorette party was in a cabin a few hours away. Mark called to say goodnight. "I love you. Have fun, but not too much fun." He laughed. "I love you too," I said, my voice feeling thin and hollow. Later that night, after everyone else had stumbled off to bed, Sarah and I were the only ones left awake by the fire. She gave me my gift. It wasn't lingerie or anything cliché. It was a first edition copy of my favorite book, the one I'd told her about years ago that my dad used to read to me. "I wanted you to have something that was just yours," she whispered. She didn't have to say it. It wasn't about Mark. It wasn't about the wedding. It was about us. My hands were trembling as I took it. In the flickering firelight, I couldn't tell if the look on her face was love or grief. Maybe they were the same thing. I felt like I was being pulled in two. My life with Mark was real, solid, a promise I was about to make before God and everyone I knew. But this feeling, this deep, terrifying pull toward her, it also felt real. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of escalating anxiety. Every time I looked at Mark, I felt like a fraud. Every time my phone buzzed, my heart hammered against my ribs. I was a ghost haunting my own life. I kept telling myself, just get to the wedding. Just get through it. After that, everything will go back to normal. I was so wrong. The reception was beautiful. Everything I had planned. Everyone was happy, dancing, drinking. Mark spun me around the dance floor, his face flushed with joy and champagne. "I'm the luckiest man in the world," he slurred happily into my ear. I smiled, and it felt like my face was cracking. I needed air. I slipped out a side door into the cool night. The music was a dull throb through the walls, and she was there, leaning against the railing, like she was waiting for me. She wasn't smiling. "You were beautiful up there," she said, not looking at me. She was just staring out into the dark. "Thank you for everything, Sarah. I couldn't have done it without you." It sounded so formal, so fake. She finally turned to face me. Her eyes were shining. "You're leaving soon." It wasn't a question. The car was waiting to take us to the hotel. My new life. "Yeah," I whispered. "We are." We just stood there for a moment that stretched into forever. I could hear her breathing. I could hear my own heart. This was it. The last moment before everything changed. The last moment of what we were. She took a small step closer. Her voice was barely audible over the music. "Don't go." My whole body went cold. "Or," she added, a broken little smile on her face, "take me with you." It was a joke. It had to be a joke. But her eyes weren't joking. They were pleading. It was the most honest thing anyone had ever said to me. My moment of choice wasn't at the altar. It was right there, in the dark, behind my own wedding reception. I reached out and squeezed her hand. "I have to go," I said, and I let go, which brought me here, sitting in the dark of my wedding suite, staring at my phone. Mark's gentle snores filling the silence. An hour ago, a message had come through. "Are you happy?" It was from Sarah. Just those 3 words. I hadn't replied. I couldn't. What could I possibly say? Yes? No? Both? Any answer felt like a betrayal. Replying felt like continuing something I knew had to end. Not replying felt like a cruelty she didn't deserve. The joy of the day was gone. Evaporated. In its place was this vast, hollow ache. I was a wife. This was my wedding night. It was supposed to be the beginning. But all I could feel was the ending of something else. Something I couldn't even name. I finally laid down, careful not to touch him. I stared at the ceiling, feeling the weight of the ring on my finger. It felt heavy, foreign. The sun came up. Mark woke up smiling, and he kissed me. "Morning, Mrs. Miller," he said, his voice thick with sleep and happiness. I smiled back. "Morning, husband." The lie was no longer small. It was my life now. The next few weeks were a special kind of hell. I was living inside a beautiful postcard of a honeymoon. We were in paradise, and all I felt was a deep, gnawing dread. I ignored her calls. I let her texts go unanswered. The silence between us was louder than any argument we'd ever had. I was a coward. I had made my choice, but I was too afraid to live with the consequences. Every time Mark touched me, my skin crawled with guilt. He was so good. He deserved so much better than the ghost I had become. I was breaking his heart without him even knowing it. A month after the wedding, I knew I couldn't live like this anymore. The secret was a poison, and it was killing everything. My marriage, my sanity, me. I called her. Can we meet? We met at a generic coffee shop, a place with no memories. She looked tired, thinner. We ordered things we didn't touch. The silence was excruciating. I'm sorry, I said finally, the words catching in my throat. She just shook her head, a sad smile playing on her lips. What for? For choosing him? You were always going to choose him. It wasn't a choice between you and him, I lied. My voice was weak. We both knew it was a lie. Okay, she said softly. She was letting me have it. She was giving me an out. That was the most painful part. Her grace. We can't be friends anymore, I whispered. Not like we were. I can't. I can't do this to him, and I can't do it to us. Tears were finally streaming down her face, silent and steady. I know. That was it. No screaming, no fighting. Just the quiet, heartbreaking death of a 15-year friendship under the fluorescent lights of a coffee shop. I walked away without looking back. If I had looked back, I never would have left. I went home to my husband. I chose my marriage. I chose the life I was supposed to want. And I live with that choice every single day. The scar is always there. It's a quiet ache when I see two friends laughing, or when a certain song comes on the radio. It's the price I paid. When I look at my wedding photos, I'm not looking at my husband. I'm looking at the woman standing next to me, and in my mind, I'm saying goodbye.